With pick 27, Carlton have selected Jesse Motlop from South Fremantle.
This production line of Motlops just continues. Shifter, tell us about Jesse Motlop.
Oh, well, you've seen a smart forward here, and they can't match the bid. That's the interesting part here. So his dad, Daniel, he had some tricks, didn't he? I remember Daniel developing later physically. I remember seeing him as a very small boy at 17, 18 years of age, ends up a pretty tall and smart player. This boy's got all the tricks. First heard about him when he's a rising star up in the NT in about January, playing a game up at St Mary's. A scout was up there and thought that much of the way he played. He sent a text down, watch out for this kid. Well, of course, he ends up back in WA playing this year. Played in the grand final at senior level in the Waffle. Played in the state games for WA. So typical Motlop ability around the goals, innate ability to spot them, and very creative.
And he's got a build ready to play senior footy pretty early on. He played about 30 games of football this year. So while some of the Victorian kids, Kevin, only played 5 or 6 games, he played in the NT, as you said, then played Waffle Colt, a little bit of senior footy, school football as well, and of course Western Australia. So he's had a really busy period of playing a lot of games of football, and he's just the best natural small forward in this draft pool.
And Mick, you've seen a fair bit of him over there in the West as well this year.
Yeah, certainly have. Look, what impressed me about him when I went and saw him play live was his ability to play higher up the ground. He really challenges the defence. You quite often saw the defenders looking around, not knowing, is he got up in front of me, is he snuck out the back? So he's one of those natural talents that really finds space easily and just creates opportunities for his teammates around him. He played 8 games of league football and looked more than comfortable at the level against men. And as Shifter said, including a grand final at Optus Stadium, unfortunately a losing one. But nonetheless, the kid just looked very, very suited to league football and someone that'll adapt at Carlton, I think, very, very comfortably.
Yeah, and I love this pick for the Blues because it fills a need as well, a specific need. We know they addressed their midfield through the trade period of free agency, getting Chera and George Hewitt. But the small forwards become a bit of an issue because obviously Eddie Betts has retired, the great. Gibbons has moved on. They've probably only got Zach Fisher and maybe Owies at the moment, so they're a bit light on. Well, this guy will fit a need beautifully. He's a goal kicker. As Mick Ablett said, he applies pressure as well. He loves the defensive stuff, can get up and back, and he's a player that is going to put bums on seats for a long time. So how lucky are Carlton fans? Eddie Betts retires and now they get Jesse Motlop, who they can sit back and enjoy for hopefully the next 10 to 15 years.
It's just so great to see so many Motlops coming through the system. You think that they're done and then another one comes in, and Daniel Motlop was a fantastic player. You would have played a bit against him, actually.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, absolutely. Came through the same time as Daniel Motlop, and he was another one that had all the tricks. He was a highly talented forward in that front half, and now Jesse will do similar things. And as I said, he's got a build ready to probably play pretty early in the season for Carlton, I would think, and a really good kid too, really likeable, really impressionable. So, yeah, I think he'll do wonderful things.
Might play against his uncle, Stevie Motlop.
Imagine that.
He's got some of the tricks of Stevie too, so we'll look forward to that.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Now, Richmond is up next. We know that Nick Austin and Michael Voss have been doing their thing for Carlton. The Tigers are up. What sort of player are they looking for, Shifter, do you think, and Joey?
Well, no doubt it has to be midfielders, I would think. Shifter last night, they're probably a bit of a surprise. They took the 2 sort of intercept defenders in Gibcus and Brown. So I would think certainly now they would focus in these picks in the 20s on the best available midfielders.
So how do you do this? They've got the next 3 picks. Do you just pick them off your whiteboard, or are you more strategic than that?
I mean, it's hard to know. I would think by taking the 2 best tall defenders last night, they would be pretty much looking at those midfield types today. Whether they keep all 3 picks, maybe they might try and potentially trade one out to come back in next year. We'll just have to wait and see. But when you think about their list, Trent Cotchin, Edwards, Lambert and Dustin Martin are all now 30 plus. Presti is 29.
And Tarrant's come in.
Yeah, so they've got some sort of older players that have been so great for that footy club for a number of years, but they probably need to top up now in that midfield. I mean, Collier Dawkins, Thompson Dow and Jack Ross have all been in the system for a couple of years, still trying to find their feet and establish themselves. We know they've got some other players, but maybe we think they might take some of the midfielders available.
With pick 28, Richmond have selected Tyler Sonsie from the Eastern Rangers.
Yeah, just so natural. The MVP back in the under-16s, a great point of reference for these boys out of Victoria that mightn't have played in their 17th year and only had a half a year in their 18th. Go back to when all things were equal and they played a normal year of footy and represented the state, and he was the MVP then. So very, very gifted player. And we mentioned his game. The one game he had up at VFL level, had 22, looked very much at home, kicked a brilliant goal from about, or a couple of goals from about 50.
All right, we've got Tyler Sonsie on the line. Tyler, next year, if you play senior footy, you'll be playing alongside Trent Cotchin, Dustin Martin, Jack Rewald. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, it's unreal, really. Like, it's an amazing experience to be with them and, yeah, just learn off it as much as I can.
You've got your manager behind you, Nick Geeshan. You've got your family there. What does it mean to them, do you think?
Yeah, it's unreal. Like, they all know I go for Richmond, like a dream come true, really. So, yeah, they're over the moon.
Congratulations, Tyler. I see you've got all your mates there as well. It's, hopefully you enjoy the night. Which one of your mates point out is going to be best on tonight now that you've got drafted? Who's going to celebrate the hardest?
Like Connor McDonald.
So hang on, so two of you in the same room that got drafted?
Yeah.
Yes,
right. Connor. There you go. Well done, boys. That's it's pretty exciting for the both of them.
Hey, just a quick question. Tell us about where you grew up, where you're from, what you did as a teenager, and what sort of player you are, for those who don't know.
Yeah, so I'm more of a midfield forward. I like to hit the scoreboard a bit. Just grew up around Roeville and played junior footy there.
What about you, Connor? Are you proud of your mate? What are your thoughts on that, potentially playing against him next year, Hawthorn versus Richmond?
Yeah, well, I've always played with him, so it'll be a good experience to play against him. Yeah, just super proud of him, and yeah, we've played with each other. In juniors for a few years, and yeah, it's just really good to have him here and go through the same experience as him.
And how's your last 24 hours been, Connor? Sitting, watching the draft last night, seeing a few of the boys get drafted, having a sleep. How'd you sleep last night? It must be a relief now to finally have heard your name called out.
Yeah, well, I wasn't really expecting anything last night, so I was looking forward to tonight, and yeah, just so grateful that I got to experience it with one of my good mates in Tyler, and yeah, we're just really looking forward to the future now.
Well done, Connor. Well done, Tyler. Great to chat to you both. Enjoy the night and make sure you celebrate.
Cheers.
That's awesome. How good's that? Two best mates sitting and getting drafted together, Joey. That's what you love to see.
Absolutely it is. And a lot of these boys all know each other now. They all go through the academies and the state sides and play at their local footy clubs together. And then they go off and they go and forge their own careers in different teams. And, I mean, how lucky are those two boys, though, really, when you think about it? One's gone to Hawthorn, one of the great clubs of the modern era, and then the other one in Richmond, who has been the greatest club in the last 4 or 5 years. So they're going to go to great environments, they're going to learn from the best, and hopefully sets them up to have wonderful careers.
So I said Nick Geeshan's behind them as well. So is Nathan Freeman, who got drafted to Collingwood, went to St Kilda, so he's in player management as well with Connors. And, well, this is Tyler, this is his work.
Yeah, this is his work, and as we said, just a really natural footballer. I see a little bit of, think of Steve Caniglio, the way that he is when he's up and about at his best. He can kick both sides, he can hit the scoreboard. He's got that footy nous. He knew there, he was late to get to that stoppage. He's got a really good footy IQ. You can see there, picking the footy off, reading it well, and able to get forward, hit the scoreboard. He's had some injury troubles as well, but just smart, got a good goal sense. Working through the contest. He's got that ability to win on the inside and outside. One
of the great recruits, Noel Judkin, said to me once about picking Dane Swan and James Hird. It's that ability to grab it before it hits the deck off hands, whether set a bounce or whether it's a crumb from a pack up forward. The built-in IQ of where the ball will go. That's the great ability of players like Tyler Sonsi.
And the confidence with these kicks. So this is what we're seeing, all the great kicks to come out of the under-18s, pull that ball through the corridor, take the risk, and clever with his hands. So just another natural footballer, which I love to see. We love to see just these natural footballers. Connor was the same. They just know how to play the game, know how to find the footy, and they'll adapt at any level because they've got footy smarts.
And the Tigers are looking for a quick bounce as well. I know they didn't have a great year this year, but they'll be looking for these young players to come in and make an impact immediately.
With pick 29, Richmond have selected Samuel Banks from the Tasmania Devils.
Fantastic. He's the first Tasmanian boy taken, and a star he will be. I'll back you on that one. Start at the start of the year, then hurt a wrist. And again, this is the story of building your resilience. Things can't always go to plan. And so he missed a fair bit of the season and come back with that wrist. It still needed a bit of work after the season was over. It wasn't quite right, tackling one hand, but still showed his class. I liken him to a Bailey Dale, back behind the ball when he plays half-back, but he can play on the wing as well. He debuted for the Tassie Devils. They're under-18 side over there as a 16-year-old and held his own. He's barely 16 at the time. So he's following Taron Thomas, Will. There's the next one out of Tassie. He hadn't let us down. We noticed that most people hadn't put him in 40 or 50. They'd forgotten about him. Don't forget about this boy. He's a natural player, very gifted. He even made the team of the year based on just a handful of games because he's got absolute class, and that's with his use of the footy.
Yeah, so a bit more of an outside player, and that's the ability when you've got 3 picks in a row for Richmond, they can maybe mix up and get that balance right with who they want to add to that midfield, and he's certainly got that outside class and run and dash that can maybe make it as a half-back flanker.
Mick, Shifter said that some clubs may have forgotten about him. You didn't forget about him. You thought he was a good player all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he's a player for mine that's just always involved in the contest, and that's what I loved. He just tends to hang around and hang around and hang around, give himself every opportunity to be involved, whether that's at stoppage, whether it's getting as an attacking two-type player that gets the handball receive or whatever it happens to be. Really, really hard worker and a traditional Tassie product that certainly not afraid of contact, that's for sure. So the Tigers have got themselves a nice ball-winning, tough inside mid that can certainly create opportunities around him.
We can probably put him under the banner of a draft bolter here, Joey.
Yeah, well, the rankings there had him at 46, as Shifter said, taken inside the top 30. And as we've said, because, again, there's been so many players this year that we haven't seen a lot of football because of, obviously, COVID, particularly in Victoria. But a lot of these players have had injuries as well. And as Shifter said, he had a wrist injury, hadn't played a lot of football. So everyone's sort of draft orders will be quite varied compared to previous years because of lack of exposure, and you're really speculating. So the list managers and the recruiters are certainly going to have their work cut out because they are speculating with a lot of these players. There isn't as much football to see, particularly with the Victorian kids, as we've seen with some of the Western Australians that have been able to play a full season.
Shifter, do you think the speculation would help and hurt some kids? Some kids might actually be better off for not playing so much football and some might actually be worse off?
Yeah, you can overanalyse, can't you,
Yeah.
when you're looking at a player. You start to come up with all the things they can't do rather than the things they can. Go back to when they played well. That's the way I look at it for those that have had interrupted a couple of years, and that's where I go with Banks. He was the MVP back there a couple of years ago at under 16 level. That form stands up for mine because the best kids are well prepared that you're playing against, and he looked an absolute star there off half-back and playing on the wing. The people of Tassie are great footy judges too. Matty Armstrong, people like that have worked in the program for many years will rank this boy as a player for sure at AFL level. And I agree completely. He was injured when the Australian side got together early in the year and played against Geelong at VFL level. But the way he conducted himself around the group, he was a young leader. I like that about him, and I think he's got a future ahead of him.
And that's why you get a feel this year, probably more than any other, you're going to find a diamond in the rough. Some clubs are going to get a beauty in the later rounds because they just haven't seen them enough, and you're speculating. And there's going to be development, and when kids aren't playing a lot of football, they develop at different rates. So don't be surprised out of this draft pool. We'll look back in 5-6 years' time and we'll wonder, how did this player get through to pick 30, pick 35, pick 40? But it would simply have been a lack of exposure and someone's been prepared to take the risk and they turn out to be a superstar of the competition. I've got no doubt someone in these later rounds will be an absolute beauty.
Shane Edwards is an All-Australian. He's also in that list management room at the moment. He was in there last year, he's in there again. So maybe we have a future list manager in the making there, a bit like Andrew Mackey at Geelong, just trying to find him a career after playing football. And we've got Brad Scott not far away.
With pick 30, Richmond have selected Judson Clark from the Dandenong Stingrays.
Well, finally, it's about goals. I think the game's about kicking goals, and we've got a small forward, the most agile player tested at the start of the year, sub 8 seconds for the AFL agility run. And then he had a day that we all love seeing. Sam Darcy at one end for Vic Metro kick 6. The boy for Vic Country was Judson Clark kicking 5. They were spectacular goals down at Werribee, I think it was. Love seeing that. He dodges around them and he's got radar around the goals. He's got that, a bit of Tom Papley about him, you know, with a bit of a strut and I'm going to kick this, I'll take you on, see you later. Around he goes on the left, he's a lefty, and that performance reminds us that this boy's got some real AFL attributes. He come off an ACL too. Many of the boys have had that at some stage in their background, at 16th to the 17th year, so he's had that adversity. Then it tests your resolve and your love of the game a fair bit to get back from that to your best, and he certainly found the best that day.
Well, this selection is right in Richmond's wheelhouse. These are the type of players they've been drafting for years. These smalls that can play midfield forward. They've got that running power. You think of, you know, Jack Graham and Castagna and Rioli, Lambert, Dan Butler we saw as the comparison.
Higgins.
Yeah, they love those players that have got that ability to get up the field, get back towards goal, hit the scoreboard, apply pressure, but also win it through the midfield. So it just ticks the box for the type of recruit that Richmond have been known for, and it's been a big part of their success in recent years.
Mick, do you like the look of Judson? Do you think he can play some senior footy next year?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I really like, as Joey just mentioned, his ability to tie in with someone like a Daniel Rioli, where, you know, they can alternate getting up the ground, where they obviously find the footy. We saw his numbers come up on the ball where he averages just shy of 18 disposals. So there's no issue there, and then the ability to get back and really hit the scoreboard's important for the Tigers.
With pick 31, the West Coast Eagles have selected Brady Howe from Peel Thunder.
Peel Thunder boy shifter. No surprise, or how do you read that selection?
Terrific pick, and sometimes it can be your last game. And he debuted at senior level in the last game of the Waffle this year. Didn't look out of place at all. Had 22 disposals and showcased his potential. Can play that lead-up role, 5th and 6th as a forward, but even can push from half-back. Lovely size, 189 too, so much scope about him. This boy he's from Harvey Football Club down in the Peel Thunder region. Having seen him in those rep games, I thought he's one to watch, but that breakout game at senior level really pitched him in as a likely draftee.
Yeah, another one with good speed that can play either through the wing or that mid-forward, that high forward, that running ability that we know the modern game, particularly those smalls that play in the front half. You've got to have that running ability to get up in the midfield, get back towards goal. He can hit the scoreboard, and they've kept another one local for the West Coast Eagles and another Western Australian drafted.
All right, Mick, take us into WA camp. How does this boy play?
Yeah, great to see West Coast take another local product from WA. This kid came through that same sort of system and pathway as Jai Amos that we saw taken in the top 10 last night by Fremantle. I remember seeing they were the two players that stood out of that group coming from that southwest region. He just provides a really difficult matchup. I remember watching him going, geez, this kid's got some footy smarts. He just sees things unfold that split second earlier than others, and he's just as adept at ground level, but at 189 centimetres, he shot up quite a bit, and he's quite strong in the air as well. So he's going to provide some headaches for opposition teams, and another kid out of a really good country zone over here in WA. And I know former Peel talent manager John Dietz that went on to work at the Gold Coast Suns has always been a really big rap on this kid, so fantastic to see him get his opportunity.
Joey, it seems like there's lots of clubs at the moment taking local kids. Freo take kids from WA, West Coast just then, Geelong taking Geelong Falcons. Must be, if there's a 50-50 weighing up decision, they take the kid that's in their region.
Well, I think so. I think it's just a bit of a bonus. If you've got a player that you really like, he's local, you know, you don't have to relocate, you don't have to worry necessarily about them potentially, you know, moving it and the go-home factor. I think it's just a bonus because they certainly have them rated where they have them on their list. They want them at their football club, and West Coast have got another one they've been able to keep from WA.
With pick 32, the Geelong Cats have selected James Willis from North Adelaide.
Yeah, no surprise to me. Tough, competitive beast. Don't you love to see those kids get through? And he's got great natural athleticism. He's got the beautiful combination of speed and endurance. That I looked at his tape and just the way he attacks the ball. He's ferocious at the footy. Then at the end of the year, he just missed the national games, copped an injury, so you didn't see him up against the best from WA. They met on 3 occasions to give everyone the chance to compare them. So he slipped under the radar with having that injury at the end. So he's a boy from Ingle Farm Footy Club, the Heights School. Plays at North Adelaide, but prolific ball winner. He was averaging in the 20, about the 25 for the year in his games at under 18 level. He even had some 34s and kicking goals and looked to be breaking out as a real star. But that injury kept him off the radar. But the Cats haven't missed him.
Yeah, another one that had injuries as a junior. There's been a lot of these players that have had injuries at such a young age. He had an ankle injury, a shifter so late in the year, but powerful, competitive, strong tackler, contested ball. You know, the type of player that Geelong love to have at their football club.
Mick, you surprised? You like it? What were you expecting with Geelong's pick here?
Oh, I labelled him the finisher. In the stuff that I saw, he just had this knack of just really nailing that final possession, and whether that was hitting the scoreboard or hitting someone up inside forward 50, I just really liked that polish and that class. And we saw on his scout profile there, Tommy, that it said a burst of speed. He's got that real change of speed, which allows him to, whether it's evade somebody that's just about to lay a tackle or step through a contest, very, very polished product, and gives Geelong a nice bit of outside class, which I think they've been craving for a little bit now. So nice selection.
All right, the Swans are up next. Mick, we'll keep checking back in with you over in WA. There's a bit of activity there as well. I should have said before that Jack Riewoldt and Samuel Banks, that'll be good. A couple of Tasmanian products playing for Richmond. I'm sure Jack Riewoldt, who's a friend of Fox Footy here and one of us, will enjoy that very much. All right, the Swans just have one pick. What are they looking at, Shifter? What sort of player? Who's on the board?
I don't know where they'll go. I'll be guessing here. Geez, I can see a Corey Warner there. I wonder if he could join his brother, Chad.
Yep.
He's an attractive type of player for mine, a lefty from over there at East Fremantle. East Fremantle had a great group too this year, a great group of boys in the mix to get through and be drafted. Could be him. Young Warner's a bit like an Andrew Gaff, if you can imagine Andrew as a young fella getting up and down the ground, an enormous runner, an athlete that just links up so well from right deep in defence and can hit the scoreboard as well. Yeah, and he showed at the draft combine. Sometimes just a little thing bobs up. Well, he did a 100-centimetre running vertical jump. He's got some power there. You love to see that from a smaller player. He's just around the 6-foot mark, 182, 183 centimetres. It could be him. Well, let's see.
Well, there's a bid that's come for the St Kilda Academy player, Machito Owens. What can you tell us about him, Shifter?
Well, I think the Saints will match the bid. That's what I'm going to say straight away, this boy. Have they? Straight away. It took them 10 seconds. Yeah, Owens is the boy that take your opportunity message comes for mine. The rep game, Metro versus Country, last-minute change in Mitch Owens. Someone's out injured, you grab your chance. He had 29. He's in the best half a dozen on the ground against the best kids of Victoria, and that made a statement that you might be good enough. Well, he was. He continued that form then back at Sandringham the next couple of weeks, and you thought, gee, we've found one here. You dig back, he's had the growth spurt. In the last 12, 18 months, he's grown 12 centimetres. He went from the 180 or the 179, run-of-the-mill midfielder, I suppose, to the boy that can mark the ball, great at stoppages, can run. So it's that late spurt in his 17th, 18th year, growth spurt, that's allowed him to be the player he's turned out to be.
And it looks like St Kilda will match this bid, but they're not giving up a lot there, are they? They're going to lose pick 48 and 54, and they'll get back 59 and they get themselves Owens. So
this is the reason they did what they did in the trade period, though, to get themselves more picks in that sort of third, fourth round territory. Yeah, they knew they had a couple of these Academy NGA boys coming through. Owens is one of them, as Shifter said, 191 centimetres. Again, one of those powerful sort of players that can use their size and strength to get out of stoppage, and Japanese heritage. And I remember a game, there's a game, Kevin, I'm not sure, Mentone Grammar. He played for Mentone Grammar against Ivanhoe school game at the Grammar. He had 43 disposals, 20 contested, kicked 4 goals. So he's certainly got some high-end talent about him.
With pick 33, St Kilda have matched the Sydney Swans bid for Machito Owens from the Sandringham Dragons.
And you think, Shifter, that's probably a bit lower than you had him ranked? You had him ranked a bit higher, Owens, than 33?
He's a chance to get a bid last night, we thought.
Yeah.
There was some interest in him definitely late, and that was always a possibility. So that's how even this group is through the, probably 15 through to 40. Very, very even, and people rate them a wee bit differently. But, yeah, I love the growth spurt. I love the pick-me game too, where you make a statement that I'm good enough. And wouldn't that, you'd go away from that thinking that yourself. So then carried on immediately with his form in the next number of weeks, and obviously with that school game as well, that he's going to be an exciting player for the Saints fans.
Sounds like he
played a bit of basketball, but grew 10 centimetres in the last 12 months. Yeah. So he's really shot up and got a lot of upside, real upside about him. He's had a lot of injuries as well. Another one who's had injuries, but certainly got upside.
You like the look of him, Mick?
Yeah, the Saints have been delighted with this because, as we saw up on the board there too, it doesn't affect their draft too much. They slide back a couple of positions, and they've got a player in the door that just covers the ground so well. That's when you watch some players play, they just glide across the ground. They cover a lot of ground with ease, and he's certainly one of them. And I just love that initial burst that he's got. He creates separation from his opponents and just allows himself a few extra seconds to dispose of the footy and make the right decision. So really good pick up by the Saints. And as I said, the fact that it's come a little bit later hasn't cost them much at all.
And I think it fills a need as well for St Kilda when you think about their list. I mean, they probably need that sort of size of a player that can burst out of stoppage, that mid-forward. I mean, Jade Gresham's probably their one that can play mid-forward, but he's obviously much smaller. Then they've got those real solid, consistent, tough worker bees in the midfield, led by Jack Steele, but, Crouch and Seb Ross and Hanbury when he's fit. So I think he just adds a different dynamic, and maybe that's why they lent towards Wanganeen Malira on the outside, because they knew they've got a couple of these sort of players that can play through that midfield forward coming in later in the draft.
And he's running under their nose as well. Jack Henty runs the NGA at St Kilda, and they've got a fair few boys who are ready to be taken either in the draft or in the rookie draft maybe tomorrow. Yeah,
Nick Del Sano coaching them as well, so I'm sure he's put some work into them, and hopefully they can have an impact for St Kilda sooner rather than later, although they probably are a bit more of a project player.
What about the Swans here, Shifter? Kinnear Beatson's weighing things up. They've obviously made one bid.
They might make another. There's still some good boys there that Ken will probably want to keep the other clubs honest on, so he may make some bids. Marcus Winhager is one of those too, another next-gen academy boy from St Kilda, for instance. He could be of interest at this stage. I like a boy called Cooper Hamilton too that's really got some terrific upside for mine that hasn't been taken as yet, a boy from Bendigo, an elite runner. He smashed the 2K record, but he's got some, a bit like a Trent Rivers type, you know, a real athletic type that can come from half-back. I've seen him go forward a couple of times for Bendigo too and take marks across the pack, you know, that power up in the air as well. But again, he's down at Caulfield Grammar. I didn't see school footy, but seen a bit of him play at the Bendigo level, and I think he's got some real AFL attributes and hasn't been called as yet.
Yeah, I had here in the notes for Sydney that their needs was probably an inside mid because they had Kennedy, Parker obviously getting on. They lost Hewitt. Well, they took that last night, didn't they, with Sheldrick, who is really that inside midfielder who will replace those Bulls for them. So then maybe a key defender might be someone they look at, because you think about Tom McCartan, who's wonderful, but Rampy's getting on a bit in age. They've got Malik and they might be a bit thin in the back line. So maybe they're looking at seeing if they can find an up-and-coming key defender to help fill the post. They were linked to Brown, I think it was, weren't they, last night, but they didn't get him.
Yep.
So potentially they're looking at some sort of rebounding or key defender.
You often talk about the need to have lots of midfielders, though, Joey. Can you have too many midfielders or too many inside midfielders?
I don't necessarily think you can have too many midfielders. We've seen Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs and the sides that are at the top of the ladder, because if you have a heap of midfielders, they can then spill out to the periphery. You can put one on a wing like an Angus Brayshaw. You can move someone to half-back. You can play at a half-forward like James Harms did for Melbourne and have a real impact. So midfielders are always the safe option that can then spill out, but sometimes you might need the needs basis. Sydney have got a fair bit going for them in the midfield. You think of Ollie Florence, and they've got a couple of the kids. They had a great draft last year with those academy products that, they're either looking at they're just the best available, or particularly maybe a bit more of a needs basis where I think could be a potential defender.
And Zach Taylor's still available as well. Oh, we've got Brad Scott coming up now.
With pick 34, the Sydney Swans have selected Matthew Roberts from South Adelaide.
Another South Adelaide product.
It's their second. That's fantastic. He's a no-fuss player, and he's your midfielder on the inside too. Stepped up and played some good senior footy at South Adelaide with Jason Horne-Francis as well. Even in a final, kicked a couple in a final. Was their most consistent player in those national games against WA this year. So a lefty, burst from the centre. Liken him to Jaron Lyons, no fuss player in that sense. He just keeps getting in the right spots, doing the right thing most of the time. Good kick of the ball, clean hands. I love the clean hands players. I just switch them pretty quick if they fumble 2 or 3 times. You can't afford to at the pace that the AFL's played. And he's a great safe pick, I think, Matty Roberts for the Sydney Swans.
Yeah, again, I love this. Just, again, a natural footballer. You see there maybe a bit of a slight question mark on his athleticism, but you know what he can do? He knows how to find the footy. Yeah. He knows how to use it. He's a beautiful distributor. You can see there his left leg. He can play in a number of positions, and I think he's probably one that is a bit ready-made, a bit like Sheldrick. They can come in and have an impact straight away, so it's a great get.
All right, let's have a chat to him. Matty Roberts joins us on the line, presumably from Adelaide. You must be stoked. Tell us how you're feeling.
Oh, it's just lost for words, really. Like, just over the moon to be given an opportunity, and just so grateful for it. I'm super pumped.
Hey, Matty, you've got a mate there in an Adelaide jumper. You're going to have to get him a Sydney Swans jumper pretty soon. Can you just have a word to him?
Yeah, he's like, oh, maybe I'll just wear it just in case. But, yeah, I'm sure he'll swap that one over pretty soon.
Matty, you're a teammate of Jason Horne-Francis. Did you speak to him last night? How was he? And it must be great now that at some stage you're going to get to line up against him.
Yeah, I spoke to him a bit last night. He's had a fair bit going on. But, yeah, I'm just super proud of him and super pumped for him to be that #1 pick. And, yeah, I'm keen to match up on him whenever that may come.
That would be very exciting. Matty, are you looking forward to actually moving to Sydney and getting to a new state and a new home?
Yeah, it's gonna be good fun. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it.
How's your mum going to be, mate? Is she going to be upset, or will she be okay with you moving into state?
She's probably gonna struggle a bit, I think. You're right. She sort of kicked me out of home 3 years ago to go to boarding school, so she'll be right.
All right, Matty, really well done tonight. Congratulations, and looking forward to seeing what you can do for the Sydney Swans.
Oh, that's great. There you go. He's going to enjoy the night with the boys too now.
No worries. Goodbye to you as well, Matty. Fantastic stuff. They've got a ripper. And North Melbourne looking to get their version of him right now.
With pick 35, North Melbourne have selected Paul Curtis from the Western Jets.
Yeah, boy from the Western Jets and a goal kicker again. I love it, the small forwards. He's not that small. They're coming into. He's a 185-centimetre boy. He had a pick me, I reckon it was a quarter one day, the first time I'd spotted him playing for the Jets against Sandringham one day. 4 goals in that period. He was super. Just one of those kids that in front first to move. I think our coaches have told us that for years and years in footy, and he was exactly that. He read the play perfectly, come into the forward area, and he had one-touch hands out in front, and then dobbed them everywhere for his set shots on the left foot. Then he repeated that form when he played for Vic Metro, straight up into that squad, and then averaged 2 goals a game in all the rep series trials, and then the game against Vic Country. So grabbed his chance when it first bobbed up, and then followed up with some good rep games.
Yeah, nice bit of balance for the Kangaroos with who they've drafted. Obviously, Horn Francis, they took Goda, and now they've got someone that can hit the scoreboard and impact kicking goals.
All right, let's go to Marvel Stadium where Sarah Ollie has the recruiting manager from Richmond, Matt Clark. What's the vibe down there, Sarah?
Well, Matt is very happy because not only has he nailed his first 5 draft picks, his words, not mine, but he's the first recruiter done for this evening. But, Matty, you must be pretty stoked with the haul of Josh Gibcus, Tom Brown, Tyler Sonsi, Samuel Banks and Judson Clark.
Yeah, really excited. Fulfilled some really good needs in our list that we thought, particularly early. We thought there's some good players that come through to the 20s, and yeah, we're rapt to get our boys.
Now, last night, David King said Gibcus was the steal of the first night, but you're telling me that another player within the 5 has more talent. Who's that?
I mean, Josh is all our boys are talented, but obviously tonight, Tyler Sonsi, one of the more talented players in the draft, and he's had some injury issues in the last 18 months. It's probably just stunted his development, and obviously COVID along with that with a lot of the boys. So, but we think Tyler's got great upside. He's a Richmond fan, so he's pretty excited. So no, we're really excited.
And the Tigers do have a bit of a romance with Tasmania and also Clarence.
Yeah, another Clarence boy in Sammy Banks. So yeah, so we've obviously had a lot of Tasmanians come through the system with some of our legends that are one still playing at the moment. So great to have Banksy on board. He's a quality kid.
Now we know drafts can really propel a team towards a premiership. In 5, 6, 7 years' time, will we be looking back and going, wow, this was a pretty impressive haul from the Tigers?
Oh, we hope so, yeah. I mean, it's great when you can bring together a group of boys in this number, and hopefully they can play together and come through as a wave like we've had in the past with a few of our guys coming from the same draft. If you can nail some picks in the same draft and they play a lot of footy together, they can take you a long way.
Well, 5 picks inside the top 30. Well done. You've earned a nice long sleep and perhaps a glass of red, Matty.
Yeah, I think that might happen a bit later on for sure.
Beautiful.
Thank you to Sarah and thank you to Matty Clark from Richmond. So 3 picks in a row for the Tigers. It's pretty rare you get to see that really ever since Gold Coast and the Giants entered the competition. They'd be pretty happy with how they went.
Yeah, absolutely. And as they said, Tyler Sonsi is the one that has got that real upside. He's a high-end talent. As I said, had some injuries and haven't been able to necessarily get that continuity with his football, but they'll be wrapped with what they've done. And as you said, they've just stocked up and topped up with 5, really talented young kids to go with the players they're going to get back next year. No doubt Richmond are going to be a team that you'd think are challenging again for a top 4 spot next year, but at the same time they're replenishing their youth with this couple of key defenders and some midfielders. So you'd think the Tigers are going to be playing finals footy for a long time to come.
It's been a while since we've had a pick swap. We're waiting to see one come through, potentially to do with the Adelaide Crows or even Collingwood or GWS or whoever else wants to get it done. It's interesting, isn't it, though? These clubs, they want to be inventive, they want to be attacking, but more often than not, they just go with what they know and the players that they know really well.
Yeah, probably a little bit of a surprise shift that we haven't seen more trading up. We'd sort of heard throughout today that there were some clubs that would be looking to get up higher into the 20s and try and nab one of these talented midfielders, particularly through this draft. We haven't seen that. So they've stuck to the order that we came into tonight with, so that's interesting. So whether the clubs ahead of them, felt that they also had some talent there, but we thought there might have been a little bit more action than there has been.
Yeah, I think it needs 2 to tango, and I think the one that wouldn't tango is the one that's looking at the board now saying, I'm happy where I'm placed. There's still good players on the board. I'm not going to give up my positioning on this right at the minute for that offer that they haven't considered good enough.
So there could be a trade here. The Crows, I mean, they would be used in the trade. They were at the forefront of a discussion with the Sydney Swans regarding Jordan Dawson. They wanted to be aggressive. They wanted to stay in the first round. They're happy to move back later picks. They've got 30 seconds left to make their call. Wouldn't be surprised if a club is going to them now and saying, hey, what about this?
Well, this might be an opportunity for a club that wants to get into the draft, get higher up the order. We've seen a lot of clubs, Tommy, in this draft period that started off with some early picks. So you think about some clubs like the Western Bulldogs and Collingwood, obviously, Essendon, Port Adelaide, Brisbane, that had a lot of early picks and then haven't got any picks in this sort of second or third round through this period. Even Essendon that might want to get back in. So maybe that's the case at the moment. Adelaide may be a club happy to maybe bank a future draft pick because they are still part of a rebuild. They might slide back a little bit here potentially and be able to get some extra trade currency for next year's draft.
And I'm sure they've got some players they're looking at next year as well, some South Australian-born players, Isaac Rankin, Jake Lukosius from Gold Coast. They're both out of contract as well, and they've got some money to spend in their salary cap. So we're still waiting to see what the Crows are going to do here.
This is one of those unusual events, the draft, where clubs all want to come out with a positive. They're going to have a message back to their fans, back to their own playing group about what the next couple of years looks like. They normally tack it on the back of something they've done at draft time, whether it's the type of player they got, or they've pushed up to get a player that they think is really going to help their group in a certain way. That's the time 18 clubs come up with, we've done well here.
And, well, this is where clubs' draft boards would be looking very different right now, wouldn't they? Because once you get to this part, it's really the eye of the beholder and everyone's seen something different in different players. So Adelaide might be comfortable that the player that they really like, they might be able to slide back and also, get something else. You can see there some of the labs. Zach Taylor's probably one the surprise. I really like him. I think he's a terrific midfielder, again, a natural footballer. There hasn't been a bid for Faye yet. Howes was one that we thought there was some sort of early phantom drafts that had him pick 19 to Melbourne, so he's also on the board. Maybe it is Melbourne at pick 39 who see Howes still on the board, who might want to slide up and nab him as well.
Yeah, I'm told that there's a trade in the works between the Crows and the Demons, so we'll wait and see exactly what that is and how it transpires, where the future picks are involved. I think the Pies and GWS as well are involved in trade discussions regarding future picks, which we care about, but what we want to know is what picks they are this year at the moment.
Yeah, the pick swaps don't really interest us too much, Tom. But they're clubs, they put a lot of thought into it. There's a lot of science that goes behind it to be able to have a stronger draft hand the following year. Clubs come in and out of the picks. I think there's already been, Maxie Lawton was saying upstairs, there's something like already half the future third-round picks next year have already swapped hands.
It's incredible.
Between the trade periods and whatever. So there's a lot more of that going on as it becomes a bit more sophisticated with the recruiting and the points and all those sorts of things. So they're taking their time.
So that's Jason Taylor on the phone, is the list boss at Melbourne Footy Club. Justin Reid is his equivalent of the Adelaide Crows. We'll wait and see what happens there, Shifter.
Just talking about the future picks, they haven't got the same line of sight as they've had because of COVID on their future picks. Most years you've seen the kids at under 16 level that a whole futures program in their 17th year, including a curtain raiser grand final day of the best 50 in the country, and then they go away saying, oh, gee, this looks a special group. I need to get into the first round, or I can't give up my first round choice next year. So they haven't had that lead in. They have seen a couple of state games at under 17 level. The two Vics met on a couple of occasions, and so did SAWA. But they haven't been able to compare them all. But it still looks a pretty good group, but without being able to see them all on the one stage.
So I'm told the trade between the Adelaide Crows and the Melbourne Footy Club wasn't approved. It's been declined by the AFL. So we'll go back to square one and see what the Crows want to do with this pick 36. That must have been Melbourne trying to get up and get a player that they think the Crows might be taking with pick 36. And for whatever reason, the AFL said no.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out why that hasn't been approved, what it was, why it wasn't. But the Crows have kept pick 36.
With pick 36, the Adelaide Crows have selected Jake Saligo from the Eastern Rangers.
Good young player, this. Good young player, a midfielder. 180 centimetres, not over big, a bit like you, Joey. I think he's just a smart player. Love all he does in level of consistency. His kicking is great depth. Games where he'd kick it from outside 50. So for his size, a wonderful kick, a good decision maker. He's got the clean hands that you want to see. I'd say he's a bit like a Rory Sloane, who also come from out there at the Eastern Rangers. Unassuming type of guy, but plays well every time he steps out in the park.
So you've compared him to Joey. You think he plays like Joey?
Well, he reminds me physically of a young Joey. Joey. Yeah. It's all about the 180.
Well, I had Errol Goulden as a little bit of a comparison here. Teammate of Tyler Sonsie at the Eastern Rangers. Siligo won the best and fairest. Good decision maker. Another one with a high footy IQ. Another natural footballer. So he might only be small, not the biggest unit out there, but knows how to play the game, knows how to find the footy. He's tough. He can tackle. So despite his size, he's a kid that's going to have a crack and compete for you, which is what you want. Has played a game of VFL, played a game for the Tigers and got a bit of footy. So he's had that experience against men, and obviously the Adelaide Crows have liked what they've seen with him, and a player that will move over interstate and hopefully can help the Adelaide Crows on their continued development and rebuild.
So that's the Crows. They picked up Jake Saligo, and you see a trade here as well. So Collingwood's moved up. They've picked up pick 48 in this year's draft. They've given up a future 4th rounder for next year, and the Giants are involved in that as well with the Pies. Pick 37 is next, Joey. That's where you went all the way back in 2001, 20 years ago.
Long time ago.
Long time.
Yeah, pick 37. And as we talk about some diamonds in the rough, well, there's a history of pick 37. Mark Lacroix, a couple of 200 gamers, Todd Goldstein, Harrison Petty's just won a premiership, taking pick 37 a few years ago. So as we said, there's big hype on the top 20, but you can always find a diamond in the rough.
Such as yourself.
With pick 37, the West Coast Eagles have selected Rhett Bazzo from the Waffle Colts SDFC.
This is an absolute steal for the West Coast Eagles and a sensational pickup. I'm rapt to see him make his way onto an AFL list. He'll learn under Jeremy McGovern. That's the reality of the type of player he is, that intercept marker. Look, he's even going to be able to go forward. So in 12 months' time, when Josh Kennedy moves on, maybe he goes and partners up with Oscar Allen, gives West Coast a bit of freedom to maybe even push Oscar Allen into the ruck and pinch it there. So he certainly gives them flexibility. They've got themselves an out-and-out star, and mark my words, in a few years' time, AFL people will be wondering why this kid went at pick 37.
Nothing wrong with pick 37, Mick. We'll put that in the time capsule. Based on what you've seen from West Coast so far, this draft, with a winger, a defender and a midfielder, where do you think their list is at?
Well, I think it's at a really interesting point, to be honest. I mean, you've got the ageing stars who we know with the Shannon Hearns and Josh Kennedy's, as we mentioned, Brad Shepherd, probably more on the back end of his career than at the start. So it is at an interesting point, but they've done a fantastic job over the last few years. You think of players like Jake Waterman, Tom Barrass, Tommy Cole, Oscar Allen that I mentioned. These are some players that you can really build your core group around and have another crack at a premiership in the coming years. That's not to say that they can't have one last crack at it with the group that they've got. They've brought Tim Kelly in, obviously, over the last couple of years, who's added some real class to that group. They had their injury concerns over the last 12 months, but you can almost pencil in most of the games over here in WA, so I think they're really well positioned for the future.
With pick 38, North Melbourne have selected Miller Bergman from the Dandenong Stingrays.
Not surprised with this boy. I certainly had him as a draftable player. A boy of about the 188, but light. Think of Will Day, the boy at Hawthorn, you know, lightly built, but he's such a great decision maker and user of the footy. He's the boy you want to see with the footy in his hands. That's how good his decision making and execution is. He can play anywhere along the flank. So whether it's out in the wing, half forward, half back, those three roles he's played this year, just lacks the weight at the minute at 70 kilos, but that elite kicking is what he brings to the table.
Yeah, another one of those outside sort of talented that we spoke about that maybe the Kangaroos need a little bit more of. We know they're pretty well stacked now in the midfield, particularly in that inside midfield with Horn Francis. They got Greenwood. We know about Simpkin and Davies Uniacke, Jed Anderson, and they drafted a couple in Phillips and Powell. So to now get a bit of those flankers that have got some athleticism and some kicking ability and some run, that's probably where they're now starting to fill the needs. They've done really well with their inside mids, the Kangaroos. Now they're starting to fill the peripheries, and on top of getting Coleman Jones, you know, in the trade period with Larkey and a couple of the other tall forward rucks, they're starting to really build a strong list now that they can continue to develop in the next few seasons.
So they've had 3 picks in that second round, and they won't have another one until round 4 when they'll have pick 64.
With pick 39, Melbourne have selected Blake Howes from the Sandringham Dragons.
On a wing, can play forward, but I think he could even potentially develop into an inside mid, one of those tall mids at 190 centimetres. I really like what I've seen of him. He's got that good athleticism. You can see he wins contest. Jack Gunston is a really good description. He's a player that can be a natural forward, but has also got more than that. He can play up the ground and potentially, as we said, go through it as an inside mid. I really like this selection for Melbourne, and gee, they've done well here, the D's.
Yeah, the D's would pick 39. So I guess when you win a premiership and you've got a pretty full list of talent, you can just pick and choose exactly who you want and just slot them in and maybe play them a year in the VFL and see how it develops there, Joey.
Yeah, but he was an under-16 All-Australian, so he, all the recruiters have been able to have a good look at him. As we said, that prototype 190-centimetre player that can do it, in the forward half and in the midfield, which is the type of player I really like, the ones that can do it, through that mid-forward region. They are the match winners in the AFL, the way it's being played in the modern times, and this guy fits the bill and a really nice athlete, really nice size.
Mick, what are your thoughts on Blake Howes? He's drifted a little bit and the D's would be stoked to pick him up, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'm with Joey. I love this kid. I think he's a very, very good player, and I think the D's have absolutely nailed it again. He just looks to have a huge ceiling, and that's what you want in a draftee. You want to know that there's a lot of scope for improvement there, and he certainly has that. Again, some more class on the outside for the D's. They've got those ball winners in Oliver and Viney and Petrarca and the likes on the inside. This kid gives them some class to complement the Salems and the like. Should have gone a lot earlier for mine, so nice pick up by the D's.
I was with Blake Howes at a Hemisphere Sports Management event on Tuesday night, and he was saying he's just happy to go anywhere. And the fact that he's staying in Melbourne, I'd imagine he'd be pretty happy with that. I think he grew up a Saints supporter, Joey.
Oh, it's a shame for the Saints. They've missed out. He's going to a pretty good club. I mean, it might be tough for him to get a game early because they are flying Melbourne and the list that they've got, but he'll get some good grounding and he'll learn off some of the best and try and force his way into the side. All
right, great stuff. Round 2 is done and dusted. Round 3 is not far away. Stay with us on Fox Footy's coverage of the 2021 National Draft.
Every year, I think, Paddy, this will be it. You'll be picked. It's bigger than medals, bigger than money, bigger than premierships. This is why we play. And surely this year, I'll be chosen as a NAB mini legend.
Zach Toohey? How many Brownlows has he won?
Supporting footballers from NAB AFL Auskick to the big time. NAB, more than money.
Success is graded on a curve. That's on your face. Yes, Suzukis are designed only for the most successful people in Australia.
Tick, boom, me not really care what I'm bumping to. Bulldozer, make room, right that pan for me.
With Nordic Track, the results you want start here.
Let's go on a journey through Antarctica, through Monument Valley,
through the Balkans,
in Thailand,
in Morocco.
The best treadmills, bikes, ellipticals, rowers, and state-of-the-art strength equipment take you further. Nordic Track connects you to a personal trainer in your home. Nordic Track, the home of interactive personal training.
Here at Amart Furniture, our Black Friday sale is on now. Save up to 50% off a huge range of sofas, living, dining and more. You won't want to miss it. Amart Furniture, limited time only.
Now's the time to head into Repco, because we're bringing the Bathurst with this exclusive Bowden's Own Bathurst 6-pack for only $64.
Are you ready for some quality time in the great outdoors? Four-wheel drive Supercenter has you covered. Scan the QR code on screen for a chance to win this super tough Adventure Kings camper trailer, valued at over $21,000. Simply tell us which campsite you'd visit first in your Kings camper trailer, and you'll go straight into the draw to win this ultimate prize. Scan the QR code on screen to enter, or visit campertrailerkingscomp.com.au.
There are 6 people sewn together into the
ragdoll? Ragdoll it is.
What is that? You're on his kill list.
Yes.
Ragdoll. New episode every Saturday.
Now the race is on then, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't want to give up his opportunity to win an 8th world title and become the greatest of all time. He's trying to take the lead from Verstappen. what a drive. This has been game on, back at the top.
You're watching Fox Footy's draft coverage. How good is that? That's Johnson and Goda and Butler coming up next as well, which is an amazing scene given that his brother was with him. Sonsie, McDonald, Roberts, they're all there. He's going to the Sydney Swans, and it's an unbelievable night for so many boys. Their lives are being made.
Absolutely. It's the best night of their lives up until this point in time. They're living out their boyhood dreams. They get to go to AFL clubs, and there's still a lot of nervous boys at the moment sitting at home just praying and hoping that their name's going to get called out in these last couple of rounds. But it is one of the great moments for not only the players but also their family and friends who have been on the journey with them, taking them to local games of footy and everything else. So it's been great.
Shifter, the Sydney Swans are on the clock. We can see him there. Charlie Gardner's out the back, the head of footy. I'd imagine they'd be deep in conversations about who they pick with pick number 40. We saw Melbourne Footy Club before the break select Blake Howes with the last selection of the second round. You thought that was a bit of a surprise that he drifted that far. The Sydney Swans are up next. They've got 4 minutes to go. We thought they might look for some more midfielders, Joey.
Yeah, we did. And again, the Swans are a club that have had some success with some of these later picks. Tom McCartan was a pick 33. Chad Warner was a pick 39 a few years ago. Justin McInerney, who's become a really good player for the Swans, was pick 44. And even Jordan Dawson at pick 56. So Kinnear Beats and his team have had some success in recent years. You know, Rowbottom and Hayward are post pick 20 as well. So they've got some success. And just a couple of interesting notes that we've noted so far, Tom, with this draft. It seems to be a real homegrown draft. So you mentioned the Western Australian clubs. Yep. So out of the 6 picks for the 2 Western Australian sides, 5 of them have been homegrown. But also with the Victorian clubs, 80% of the players drafted to Victorian clubs have been from Victoria. So you just wonder whether the COVID world we're living in is maybe playing a factor, whether it means they don't necessarily go and see as much interstate football, or whether they want to draft players from their home state because of all the travel restrictions and everything else.
Pretty good comment, I think. They haven't seen them live. Yeah, they haven't been on a plane to go and make an assessment of the WA boys or the SA boys as much as they would normally do it. And so that leads you to, you see what you believe.
What you know.
Yeah, exactly, right in front of your nose.
I just wonder whether clubs are more scared of the go-home factor than ever before. More players are looking to leave not before their contracts are finished, but maybe after 2 years or after 3 years, and then free agency as well has increased player movement. It might spook them a bit. No matter how good your environment is, you still might lose players because they want to go home for family reasons. We've seen it so many times in recent years.
Well, we've seen it with Jordan Dawson, haven't we? You know, Sydney Swans developed him, took him at pick 56, developed him into an almost all-Australian calibre player, and then for reasons that are fair, wanted to go home, but it does put the club out.
Do that at your peril, as I say. Adam Goods you wouldn't have got at Sydney. You would have got Nicky O'Loughlin. You wouldn't have got Matthew Pavlik over there at Fremantle. You know, back your club, and it's culture to keep that great player.
Yeah.
That he'll end up loving the club. He'll be a leader and a captain of your footy club, and he won't go home. It needs to be approached if you think he's far better than the other pick.
And this is the other surprise, I think, of the night, as we said earlier. We thought there would be a lot of live trades, a lot of swapping of picks, that everyone would have a different board of who they wanted to take, but we haven't seen as much of that as we thought. And again, maybe that unpredictability has meant that clubs are a bit reluctant to slide down in the draft order. They're not quite sure, so they're just sticking with what they know and what their board says and just trusting themselves.
All right, so there's been a trade of picks. We see that there. Port Adelaide get pick 55 in, and Carlton get a future 4th rounder again. That's just Port's way of getting up and maybe even getting a player they have in their whiteboard this year, Joey.
Well, that's right. They've certainly maybe got their eye on someone that they think can get through to 55, so they want to get in this year, prepare to sacrifice a 4th round pick next year, and maybe vice versa. Carlton maybe have got their board and think that anyone that they really had their eye on, or they weren't going to take any more picks, I didn't think anyway, did they? There was always talk that Carlton were just going to have the 1 pick to get the small forward, so they don't need pick 55, so Port Adelaide have taken advantage.
And Port would be pretty happy at the minute. Jace Burgoyne hasn't been a bid for him. He's got there to get him pretty cheap, so they won't need as much to get him, and they are committed to taking him with their last pick tonight if there's no bid on him. So I think they'd be pretty pleased. I think that boy's got some real class in what I'd seen of him this year in a couple of those national games. A really smooth mover. He's got the Burgoyne ability to just break the lines with speed. He's got great vision as well. He started back behind the ball as a half-back, could play wing on the outside. He's got a light body, but his dad, of course, was a champion player in the Indigenous team of the century. Sean, his brother, of course, one of the great champions of the game at Port Adelaide and at Hawthorn, but Pete was a great player.
With pick 40, the Sydney Swans have selected Corey Warner from East Fremantle.
Shifter, you called this earlier and it's happened.
Love this. Love it.
Joins the brother. There's one happy boy in Corey over there in WA. A dream has come true at an unbelievable level. He wanted to make the AFL, but geez, if I could really have what I wanted, I'd love to play with my brother.
I reckon his parents are pretty happy too. You would think having both boys now playing for the same club. I love seeing this, and I think, again, the clubs don't take a player because they have a brother there. No doubt they've seen traits they like with Corey, and certainly he is one of those ones, isn't he, Shifter, that's that athlete. He's a natural runner that can play on the wing. Bit different to his brother. He's not playing so much in and, you know, a burst like Chad is, so he's shown some good signs, but certainly that outside running type. Think of like an Ed Langdon that could just run all day on the wing.
Mick Ablett, you've seen a bit of Corey over there in the West. What's your take on this selection?
Yeah, certainly have. And like Joey mentioned, he is quite different to his brother up there at Sydney. And Tommy, you touched on it. That's one way to keep him, isn't it? Bring the brother up as well. But look, I spoke to Glenn Jakovich about this kid 12 months ago because he's from a similar region and he saw him play, and he said, Chad Warner's been great, but there's another one that's better and he's on his way, which is a big call considering what he's been able to do in Sydney. But I find his acceleration is his feature. His speed, and he tested that way, sub 3 seconds in a 20-metre sprint. He's got a great endurance base too. He was only a 6-minute, 20-second 2K time trialer, so he's got that really, really athletic profile that gives him some speed and the ability to maintain that top speed. So this is a really good pick by Sydney, and a kid that's going to really give him some outside polish and class. And as we say, he's certainly going to fit in very, very nicely in Sydney alongside his brother. And we love that, don't we, Joey? A couple of brothers playing alongside each other, hopefully next year. Absolutely. Yeah, we've had a few. The Kernos are at Carlton, and there's a few brothers playing together. But no, it's a good get by the Swans. And as we said, played a few Waffle League games for East Freo at the end of the season. And yeah, he's running is his greatest strength, and he'll fit in. Yeah, the Swans, they've taken a couple of those inside mids or those bigger bodied, and now they've complemented that with a bit of outside run. He's the running man. He's the Andrew Gaff of this draft, I think. Just an elite outside runner. Big call, the Andrew Gaff of the draft. Yeah, 40's a steal. And Chad, of course, remember, rising star early last year, had some injuries, but gee, he's going to be a real player as an inside. And about the pick himself, wasn't he? Chad Warner was about a pick, late 30s, wasn't he, as well? Yep. All right. Getting some character there. We've got the Brisbane Lions for the first time tonight. They don't have many list spots, the Lions. I'm interested to see what Don Ambrosio does here, the list manager.
With pick 41, the Brisbane Lions have selected James Tunstall from East Perth.
Bit of a bolter here, Shifter. What do you make of this selection for the Lions? Another boy from Bustleton. Yeah, Bunbury boy from the grammar school there. Look, love the way he wins the footy. A bit of Adam Shearer about him if you're trying to picture the way he plays. 50% contested footy, wins it, gets the ball on the outside as well. Neat skills, clean hands, all the basics are covered. Just playing it pretty much at Colts level, but he showed his ability to in the rep side playing for WA against SA this year. A kid of about 187, still to grow into his body. He's only the 76 kilos, but 187, 6'2", is a lovely size to be a prototype AFL player. A kid from East Perth. And travelled from Bustleton to Perth to play his football. So that's 2.5 hours one way. Yeah, 5-hour round trip to play a game of football. So a bit like Jay Amos, the commitment and the hours and the travel they've had to do, you know, it holds him in good stead, and I'm sure that he'll be comfortable moving interstate. You'd be cramping up on the bus home, wouldn't you, Joe? You can imagine that. A couple of beers on the way, maybe, if you're 18, of course. Mick, tell us about this fella. Yeah, Joey's spot on. They're the Southwest's on fire down here in WA at the moment with Amos and Tunstall. Brady Hoff being like another Southwest product. So it's been a fantastic night. Look, I love him because he gets looks at goal. As a midfielder, you want those guys that can actually get forward to centre and actually get shots on goal, and he's certainly one of them. And he likes to keep the game going forward. Very, very rarely will he come out of a contest, or whether he's inside or outside, does he look backwards. He likes to get the footy moving forward, likes to get it inside 50 and give his teammates an opportunity. So it's a really nice pickup. Maybe a bit of a surprise that he's gone this early in the draft, but full credit to James and the East Perth Footy Club. Ex-West Coast Eagle player Dean Turner, now the CEO down there, clearly getting some good talent out of that neck of the woods. Thank you, Mick. We'll check back in with you in just a few moments' time. I want to talk to you about the WA talent and how strong it is this year, maybe compared to previous years. But as we speak, there's a pick that's come from the Dogs for Josh Fay, who's in the GWS Academy. Shifter, tell us about that. I'm amazed it's taken so long. Absolutely. I thought it'd come mid-20s, this boy.
won the medal for the best player for Australia, just ahead of Nick Dacos, by the way, for that game against Geelong. So he had a fantastic game, a left-footer, powerful left-footer from half-back. I liken him to, to Daniel Rich, the All-Australian half-back that had his best year with that elite kicking. So he becomes a 60-metre, 70-metre player with his run, his lovely step-through as well.
He's got all of Canberra in the one room.
That's a big function for one young man. Look at that. Give us a wave if they can hear us.
All the Queanbeyan in the one room. Unbelievable. Wait and see what happens here. The Giants, the Dogs. The Dogs clearly rate him highly, Joey. And, you know, if the Giants say no, then the Dogs will take him. So that's what this is all about, I guess.
It is, but we're pretty confident the Giants will swoop and take him. And as Shifter said, he's got that bit of dash off halfback. We've seen him play VFL football. He played when there was the VFL early in the season. He was able to play some games for the GWS Giants. And another one who's just going to complement that bit of run and dash that they've taken in recent years. You think of Lockie Ash, who's in that side. They've got Kelly and Whitfield. So we know they've got those big balls in the midfield with Hopper and Taranto and Tom Green. But now they've got that dash if they take him on the outside halfback wing.
And they've matched, so it looks like he'll be playing for the GWS Giants next year, which is a huge get for them, given how highly he's rated, Shifter. And you've spoken about it before. You're surprised he's lasted this long at all.
Well, we talk about the great attributes. We call it the weapon, don't we, these days? This kid's got a very distinctive weapon with that left foot. It's penetrating, short and long. His vision's excellent, and no surprise there. I'm just surprised that it's so late.
With pick 42, the GWS Giants have matched the Western Bulldogs bid for Joshua Fay from the Queanbeyan Tigers.
There you go, Joey. Can you tell us, there's great scenes here. The entire Canberra City is in the one room and they're celebrating because they know he's going to be a GWS Giants player now. We'll talk to him in just a few moments' time, but we're going to see some highlights as well. And he's a pretty exciting player.
Yeah, he is. As I said, played at senior level already. And I think a little bit of Hayden Young. You think about what Fremantle Dockers were able to get. He's sort of got that look there, the hair, the long blonde locks and the beautiful left foot kick, which, as Shifter said, stands out. You can see him here. He's got that ability to hit the short one. He can also kick it long with penetration, the run and dash off half-back. And as I said, I think the GWS Giants, they're a really intriguing side next season. They've got a really strong list. We know about their inside midfield depth, and they've got that quality on the outside, and he's just another one that can add to that. So, really like what the Giants have done.
You like it as well, Shifter?
Oh, very much so. Going to be a very, very good player at the AFL level.
Let's chat to him. Josh Fay, congratulations. You must be stoked. Give us an insight into what the scenes are like there in Canberra.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Got a great support network down here. Queanbeyan Tigers, they've been here my whole career. They've done so much for me. Same with Giants Academy. Everyone, I can't individually name people because I know I'll miss some, but they know who they are, and I'd like to get around to them individually over the next day or two to thank them all personally for getting me here.
Who's organised the function for you, Josh? Has that been the footy club or your mum and dad? Who's teed up the big support there tonight?
My auntie has actually, because my parents are stuck on the Gold Coast due to border restrictions. Yeah, so that was devastating if they couldn't get down here. But yeah, my auntie's taken over that, and Adrian Pavesi, the general manager at my local club.
And you'll be pretty comfortable, mate, going to the GWS Giants. Obviously, being part of the academy, been there for a while. It'll be nice to officially be a Giants player and look to play some senior games.
Yeah, exactly. I've been up there 3 or 4 times in training. I've had great networks there. I spoke to Leon, Adrian, Cam Bernasconi regularly, and I just feel at home there, and I can't wait to get started.
Oh, it's great to see, Josh. You're clearly very excited, as you should be. Looking forward to seeing what you can produce for the Giants, and give all your mates and family there a wave, because I think they deserve as much credit as you do.
Yeah, they would do. Thank you very much.
Thanks. That's Josh Fay from Canberra. He's gone to the Giants, and the Dogs bid for him, and the Giants said, no, we'll take him with that pick. So it's still the Dogs. They've got 2.5 minutes left. There they are, and they're pretty stoked. Big night in Canberra tonight, Joey.
Yeah, so it should be. They'll have a good night. Not sure how late everything stays out. Now, open in Canberra, but I'm sure they'll head out and have a good night, so they should.
With pick 43, the Western Bulldogs have selected Arthur Jones from Claremont.
Sometimes you only need an opportunity. Arthur Jones got a call up late to play in a curtain raiser grand final day for WA. lots of changes. They still had underage finals over in WA. The East Fremantle boys had to pull out. In come Arthur Jones. I hadn't heard of the boy. He made a statement. Played on the wing, dash. He kicked 2 goals, 16 possessions. You dig a bit deeper, he's from Mount Barker. He's part of the Cracker clan. You can see that. Then we watched him test at the end of the year. I loved him. He was up against Warner in the 2K. He took him on. The Indigenous boy ran up next to him and said, "I'm taking you on." They fought for about 4 laps. So I loved his ability in that game, the way he competed, and you find out a bit about the background. And he's only a lightly built boy, 65 kilos at the minute, but he had some special stuff and he's got some spunk about him as well. So I love those little glimpses of young Arthur Jones. What a reward for him.
Some excitement, bit of run and carry, quick, some speed.
Mick Ablett, I'm trying to remember the last Arthur that got drafted. He must be very excited, and he wasn't even ranked in our top 100, so it is a bolter. Tell us about him.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. It's funny, when I was having a look at him, I thought the same thing. I thought, geez, when was the last Arthur that came through? So, yeah, look, he's exciting. Think Tyler Brockman. We saw Tyler burst onto the scene, the Indigenous Hawthorn product from WA last year, and that's what he reminds me of, that speed endurance which has been touched on. He's from Mount Barker, so he's another country player out of WA, which just highlights the importance of looking after these regions and giving these kids opportunity. Mount Barker on its, you pass her on your way down to Albany, a lovely part of WA and an area that's produced a lot of AFL talent. This kid's no different. He's just someone that can really light up a game, and when you've got the brains in the room of Sam Power and Dom Malesi and these guys that have really done their homework, the Dogs have certainly got an outstanding player that's another threat up forward for an already imposing team. Mick, are you able to give us an insight into the talent in WA this year compared to previous years? It seems like every second player is getting picked up from somewhere in the state. Yeah, well, this group a couple of years ago nearly took out the NAB AFL Under-16 championships up there on the Gold Coast, so they were always a talented group of players. But as I just mentioned, there is so much depth in the country, boys, and it's something that I've harped on about for a long time. I know the West Coast Eagles are starting to invest regionally in some areas around the state as they recognise the importance, and just chatting before with Justin Longmuir about the same sort of thing, and he certainly values the regional parts of WA as well. We've got to find a way in the vast expanses of getting these kids opportunity, because they're the ones that are raw, they're the ones that have got a really high ceiling, and that's taking nothing away from the Metro kids. But, geez, it's exciting times for WA football, and I'm not surprised to see this group feature heavily in this draft. Mick, I've got an answer from Max Lawton from the Fox Footy website. He tells me the last Arthur to debut was Arthur Chilcott for Sydney in 1984. So there you have it, the first Arthur in quite some time, and congratulations to him and also the Western Bulldogs. Up next is the Adelaide Crows. Joey, what sort of player are they looking for? Well, the one player that I've just, having looked through the notes, shifted it's still on the board, is young Zach Taylor, who we all rated pretty highly. A really talented inside sort of mid-forward that's got evasive skills and a beautiful elite kick. Think of like Jade Gresham. He's that evasive dancer, only 180 centimetres and about 80 kilos. So I'm surprised he's on the board, a Calder Cannons boy. We know the Adelaide Crows actually have a fair bit of history drafting Calder Cannons players in the past. So I wonder whether they're looking at someone like him or they have someone else in mind. We can see them working the phone still. So as we get to this part of the draft, all these things come into consideration, a needs basis. Do you take the best talent? Do you look at trading in and out and those sorts of things? But yeah, Zach Taylor's probably the one for me that's still a surprise to be on the board.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Joey. Best and fairest winner at the Cannons too, and we've got what you want in terms of the two main things: getting the footy and using it well. He's a great. Here we go. The decision's made.
With pick 44, the Adelaide Crows have selected Zach Taylor from the Calder Cannons.
He's a bit like Tukey Miller. He's around the footy the whole time. He come from the Calder Cannons. What a year he had as an All-Australian. A star he is now of the game. And Zach's got that passion to play. Love the way he goes. He's got energy. He's got effervescence out there when he plays. He's got some zest about him. Has an impact all of the time.
Yeah, he's clever. He's a good little player. I really like him. I know he's only small, but we're seeing some small players have a real big impact at AFL level. And I would have thought for the Adelaide Crows this was purely just the best player on the board shifted, wouldn't it? They just would have looked at their board and said, we've got Zach Taylor rated, you know, somewhere in the 20s. He's still available at 44. Yeah. Best available. Just take the player, and they've got themselves there a little star.
I've just got a text message from a recruiter at another club saying that might be the steal of the draft for the Crows. They really rated him, and clearly the Crows would be happy to take him at pick 44. And they want midfielders as well, Joey, as you've said in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can never have enough midfielders that we've spoken about. You look there at his profile. That's pretty good numbers for the NAB League. I mean, nearly 6 clearances a game. So he wins it on the inside. He can win it on the outside. High numbers. Hits the scoreboard as well. As we said, really evasive, really clever player. Yeah, I think he's going to be a little star.
Let's chat to him. Zach Taylor, welcome to Fox Footy's coverage. You've got a lot of mates there, like everyone else who's been drafted tonight. You're now an Adelaide Crows player. How does that sit with you? I think your internet's absolutely perfect at the moment. We might get back to you, we might not, but congratulations regardless. The Collingwood Footy Club is up next. We haven't seen the Pies in a while. Joey, where have the Pies been tonight? In fact, we haven't seen them at all tonight. No, well, we knew that coming into the draft, that once they got Nick Dacos, they were going to lose most of their picks, but they've been able to get back in, and obviously there's a player that they really like.